Today, I am honored to speak with one of our MedCircle members, Dr. Kimberly Parker, a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in mood disorders and trauma. Dr. Parker will help us understand how compassion fatigue, very common, compassion fatigue can be remedied or prevented so that we can ensure the bandwidth to care for the people in our lives as we always intended. But first, some serious news. Did you know that physician assisted suicide for mental suffering is legal in the Netherlands? I recently learned this while reading a story in the Free Press about a 28-year-old woman named Zoraya Ter Beek who expects to be euthanized in May. Zoraya lives with depression, autism, and borderline personality disorder. She made this decision to die after her psychiatrist told her that they had tried everything and that there's nothing more we can do for you. It's never going to get any better. For her euthanasia to be approved, however, Zoraya had to meet the criteria set in the Dutch Termination of Life on Request and Assisted Suicide Review Procedures Act. According to the Free Press, quote, Dutch law requires those seeking assisted suicide to show they are in great pain, have no alternative, and are acting on their own volition. They also must get sign-off from at least two doctors, including a psychiatrist. The process can take a few years, culminating with the doctor giving the patient a fatal medication or, if done by oneself, a cup filled with poison to drink. When it's over, a government panel reviews the case to ensure everything was above board. The Dutch Termination of Life on Request and Assisted Suicide Review Procedures Act was passed in 2002, making the Netherlands the first country to legalize euthanasia. Other countries like Canada have considered expanding their physician-assisted suicide laws to include mental illness. According to the Free Press, quote, by early 2023, 61% of Canadians supported MAID, that's Canada's Medical Assisted in Dying program, but opposed expanding it as planned to include the mentally ill. In late January, Canada's government announced that it was postponing the MAID expansion until 2027. Zoraya isn't the first person in the Netherlands to choose euthanasia for psychological suffering, but her story certainly seems to be gaining the most global attention. Viewer, do you think assisted suicide for mental illness is a human rights violation, or that suicide should be destigmatized and this is the way to do it? I'm sure many of you will have opinions. Leave those in the comments section below. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Now, let's welcome Dr. Parker to the show. Dr. Parker, if you're comfortable sharing, do you have any thoughts on Zoraya's story and physician-assisted suicide for mental illness?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is difficult because it presents an ethical dilemma for us. We have a professional responsibility and a code of ethics that we have to follow. And our primary responsibility is the well being of those that we serve and to protect their interests. However, we also have a responsibility to the larger society as a whole, and the legal obligations trumps our loyalty to our clients. And so this is tough and it relates to our topic, compassion fatigue, because we have a strong desire to help and want to eliminate their suffering. And
Mhm.
so understanding the legal ramifications that may prevent them from having their own wishes realized is really tough.
What was most alarming to me was that Zoraya had a psychiatrist tell her there's nothing more we can do and this will never get better. I've interviewed psychologists and psychiatrists for 6 or 7 years, and I have never heard one of them say there's no hope, this can't get better. It's alarming to me that a psychiatrist would say that. What are your thoughts?
It's alarming for me as well, considering the number of treatments that we have, especially for, and we've gone really far, but especially for those that are dealing with mood disorders that are considered treatment resistant. There's several other treatments available out there that can. When I say treatment resistant, meaning that the typical medication regimen and the therapy is not helpful. But then there's other advances to treatment that can be considered as well that can really, that research has shown that's been helpful to them.
Yeah. And of course, we mentioned borderline personality disorder. We'll link some resources to BPD below this video. Dr. Parker, give us a brief introduction of how you got into the mental health field and why you like it.
Okay, wow. So let's see. Brief introduction of how I got into the field. I started out in school as a business major and took an election, had to take an election course. I think it was human services, and became familiar with the work of social work. And I've always had a strong desire to help. My mother was a nurse. I have two older sisters that are school teachers, so we're all in the helping profession. And then once I learned about social work and um, I just knew it was the job for me. It's very fulfilling and rewarding the work that we do.
We mentioned compassion fatigue earlier. Can you give an explanation of what that is and how it starts to creep into our lives?
Mhm. So, compassion fatigue basically is the persistent exposure to trauma, the prolonged exposure to the suffering and the pain of others. And those of us in the helping profession can be highly prone to compassion fatigue because of the empathetic skills that we have and that we need to have in order to be of most help. We have a strong and deep empathy. It's that deep empathy that we have for our clients that actually causes can lead to compassion fatigue because of the strong desire of wanting to um, take the pain away from them or decrease it or remove the suffering that they have. So the helping professionals can be consumed with that, and that in and of itself is compassion fatigue. So that's where I mentioned earlier the ability to disengage. We have to disengage and separate ourselves so that we aren't consumed with the suffering that our clients have.
How is compassion fatigue different than burnout?
So one burnout is it's a it's a buildup, right? It's something that we gradually experience because we are really excited. Maybe we're working on a job and we love what we do. So working 7 days a week is awesome. But we continue to do that and we become exhausted by it. So we can mimic the symptoms of compassion fatigue. However, compassion fatigue differs from burnout because compassion fatigue is specifically because of the exposure we have to trauma and the exposure we have to the suffering of others.
I we have a lot of parents who come to MedCircle because they are struggling with some issue their child is having. Perhaps it's substance use, perhaps it's depression, bullying, whatever it is. And those parents are burned out, probably experiencing compassion fatigue, and they cannot disengage. And what I mean by that is they are telling me they cannot disengage. They go, how can I disengage? It's my child. I cannot turn that switch off.
Right.
What would you suggest to a parent who admits they're burnt out and experiencing compassion fatigue,
Mhm.
but can still not find relief because their 13-year-old is struggling?
Right. And so we have to remind ourselves that we can't be the most help, even to those that we love, unless we take care of ourselves. And it's the self-care. It's when we pour into ourselves and provide ourselves some self-care, that's the disengagement. And actually it's not selfish and it's actually helpful to those that we love to care for ourselves. So that's how we're able to disengage. This is a personal self care, even if it's a extended shower in the mornings or having your favorite dessert for dinner. It's doing something small to provide yourself pleasure and to provide yourself enjoyment.
It's interesting that as we talk about compassion fatigue towards others, what I'm hearing you say is we need to be compassionate towards ourselves. So, can someone suffering from compassion fatigue realistically have compassion for themselves, or is there any other hack you can provide us with?
Well, in order to overcome compassion fatigue, self-compassion is needed. It's allowing yourself that grace and understanding that you too are human. There's no super cape on your back, although it feels like it. So to have that compassion for yourself and understanding that you too are hurting and to provide yourself that care. So that's really needed.
What do you do when you are experiencing compassion fatigue personally?
I truly disengage. I
But
take time
what does that mean? Like, is that
take
you
time
watch
off from
Netflix?
work. Yes, Netflix, yes.
Yeah,
Take
yeah,
time off from work, maybe binge watch Netflix, watch something funny on television. Make sure that I am exercising appropriately. Make sure that I'm hydrated, drinking a lot of water. But I say it's really important to take that time off. And it's hard when you can't take that time off, those days off work. And that's understandable too. But take those moments when you can so that you don't experience the high levels of compassion fatigue, because that can cause a lot of harm to us, both physically, emotionally, and mentally. And it can negatively affect our relationships with others and our ability to care for others. And most importantly, our ability to care for ourselves.
yeah, yeah. These, not to lump everyone together, but these parents don't get that, Dr. Parker. These parents are they don't take care of themselves first. They take care of their kids first. They all do. I don't see these parents prioritizing themselves. And I mean, occasionally I do, I guess. But it really is the first thing you got to do. You got to take care of you before you can even think about doing anything else. If your ducks are not in a row, how are you going to get someone else's ducks in a row? I get that. I get that. Well, as we wrap here, Dr. Parker, what final words do you have for those going through compassion fatigue, and where can people learn more about you?
So, final words is to be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, and be mindful of what you're thinking about yourself and what you're saying. Be careful with your words because they have the potential to have a negative impact on how you experience your days and how you experience your life. To find me, I can be found at www.shinecounseling.org. We're a small group practice. There's 8 therapists here, all with the same vision and the same mission is to be of most help to others, to strengthen, help, inspire, and nurture and empower others so that they can live their life in the way they desire to live it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. Parker. Wonderful to see you. And thank you also for being a MedCircle member. It's so great that you not only use MedCircle, but now are giving back to the same people who use MedCircle. So it's so nice.
You're
Thank you
so
so much.
welcome. I truly enjoy my membership. I've been a fan of MedCircle long before I became a member, and I became a member after realizing how helpful and how beneficial a tool this can be, not only for professionals, but for those that I serve. It's a great psychoeducational piece. It's a great piece that I weave into my sessions and give them homework and ask them to use some of the strategies that's taught. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh, awesome. That's so good to hear. Thank you, Dr. Parker. And thank you for watching this video. I've been interviewing doctors and MedCircle members for this YouTube series for a few weeks. And I can tell you that a reoccurring thing that comes up, and Dr. Parker just said it, is be nice to yourself, be kind to yourself, watch what you are telling yourself. And it goes back to one of the first interviews I ever did for MedCircle with Dr. Sue Varma in New York on cognitive distortions. And in that, we went through 19 cognitive distortions. An example of a cognitive distortion might be black and white thinking. Something is just either good or bad. I might say, Dr. Parker hates me after that interview because I interrupted her. Well, I don't know if she does or doesn't, but that is what I'm telling myself. And we can find ourselves in these mental traps very easily. And it happens almost for me and a lot of other people. We don't even know that it's happening. It's just our default. Our default is to talk negatively to ourselves. And I think if all these doctors, y'all, are coming on and saying, be nice to yourself, watch what you're saying to yourself, and then there's science behind it, we gotta listen and we gotta make the change. Want to dive deeper into the topic of compassion fatigue? We have a series on the topic. Check out this inside clip from the series.
I work with a lot of patients who have been through really just significant, horrible traumas, just horrible. And there are days where I go home and I'm still thinking about those patients and sort of, what am I going to do tomorrow when I see them, or what can I do to help them with the situation? And it's hard for me to disconnect sometimes.
Have you had compassion fatigue?
I think so. I think I definitely have been pulled into it. And there's certain patients, I think, as a provider, where you feel that pull more than others for whatever reason. You know, certain things are just more visceral to you. There's obviously all kinds of transference and counter-transference going on if they remind you of somebody else in your life or even another patient. That can really pull you in, because then you feel like you have much more of an even personalized sort of relationship in that way. Like, oh wow, I really understand what this person's going through. I've heard it before, you know. And that, I think that's the kind of thing that providers sometimes don't watch for, because in some ways it's touted to have good empathy. Like, that's a good thing. Like, we want that.
You can watch that full series and more at medcircle.com, but don't leave just yet. We have another inside clip. This is on cognitive distortions, my interview that I was just talking about with Dr. Sue Varma. Take a look at this.
Look, there are plenty of people who've never experienced trauma in their life who go about with all or nothing thinking. But I feel like a series of humiliations, bullying, rejection, seeing the world in either or, like either things are perfect. And a lot of times we magnify other people's lives as being so fabulous. And we talked about this in the depression series of go find me one person that has never experienced suffering in their life. That person does not exist.
Thank you for watching this video. Remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.